thank you very much for meditating with me. That's all you need to do. And also, thank you very much for being here. That's all you need to do. Some people are leaving. Thank you very much for the time you spent with us. Yeah, very good. So, all you need to do is be here, and all I need to do is open my mouth and let some words come out. That's the idea anyway, that I'm going to give a talk now. But what to talk about? It's not always so easy to talk about things. As a monk, you live your life doing what we just did, stilling down the mind, stilling down the thoughts. And we also live a very secluded, isolated life. Yeah? I don't even see my friend Mataji all that often, maybe a few minutes during the day. Most of the day I spend by myself in my hut, and I don't speak to anybody. And then suddenly you come here and they put you on the stage and they put a microphone in front of you and suddenly you need to talk. Have all these thoughts that you're trying to convey to other people. It can be quite a different experience. But I've done it a few times before, quite a few times actually. And it always works out all right. But to make sure that I don't judge myself, I don't set any expectations for my talks. And I hope you also don't have any expectations of my talks. Just at the end of the meditation, when I started talking a little bit more again, my mind was starting up again. And then I thought for a moment about what shall I talk about. But I was before I was so peaceful, just sitting there in silence. And I realized, what is there to talk about? Silence gives you all these answers. And I didn't even think that, I just felt that, like the beauty of silence. When I was a lay person, I was really into music. Yeah, some of you know already, I used to be a drummer in like a punk band, pop punk band. And I listened to heavy metal music. Yeah. I had banged so much, I lost all my hair. Oh, the old days. I was crazy back then. Even crazier than now. And I started out listening to heavy metal music, and then my music taste changed a bit as I grew a bit more calm and hopefully a little bit more wise. Started listening to rock and then pop and then classical music. And at some point I listened to this musical piece, and I can't remember the exact name, but I think it was called 16:00, so 16:00, and that stands for 16 minutes and 0 seconds. It might be slightly different, but that's how I remember it, by some composer called John something or the other. Does anybody know that piece? No, it's just 16 minutes of silence. And they actually played that piece, like they get a whole orchestra together, like all the violins and the bassoons and the whatever, the cymbals. By the way, the cymbal guy must be the easiest guy in the whole orchestra, just doing this. Anyway, and then they just, the conductor does this with his baton, and then nothing. And they even have the sheet music, and there's just nothing on there. It's all empty. I don't know, that's the most beautiful piece of music in the whole world. And I can listen to that every day. As a monk, you're not allowed to listen to music, but secretly I listen to that piece. Probably is even on YouTube, by the way, or something like that. But you can listen to that piece of music as well. Listen, it's right here, right now. And it's beautiful. Yeah, we can listen to the whole 16 minutes if you want. Well, if you want, tomorrow there's another meditation class and we can listen to the whole piece then. Right now I'll disturb the peace. I'll talk a bit about peace. But by talking about peace and silence, you never really get to the peace and silence. But still it's important that we talk about it, because Buddhism is about experience, but also to learn about experience you need the words of other people. Other people who've gone through certain experiences and who can teach you about that. And hopefully I can teach you a little bit about the beauty of peace today. And what we can take from peace. From peace we don't only take the peace itself, the silence itself, which is very beautiful, but also we can learn from that. We can learn about life. Because that is what Buddhism is, if in the end, all about. Learning about life. And that always inspired me about Buddhism. Yeah? Okay, move back a bit. So, as a monk, and probably also as nuns, but we don't have nuns here today, so I can't ask. But you often lose track of time. Like, what day is it today? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We don't even really have weekends. It's all the same, basically. So, what day is it today? And earlier this week, I thought, on Friday I'm going into town, Alamara. I know Friday, okay, I know Friday. I needed to do some government business, doesn't matter what it was, but I thought, I'll go into Friday when I go into town, I'll just go there and do that thing. So I asked Ajahn, can I do that thing? And he said, yeah, well, it's Good Friday then. So yeah, then I realized, they're not open. But I also realized I'm so out of touch, I don't know when it's Good Friday and when it's not Good Friday, when it's holiday and when it's not a holiday. Every day is a holiday for me. And every day at Nalamara, Dharmaloka Center, is a Good Friday. Every Friday, at least, not every day maybe, but every Friday is a Good Friday. Do you agree? Yes, I agree as well. Because we can come down here and find all this wisdom and peace of the Buddha. Anyway, the reason I'm saying this is, when I realized it's Good Friday, I realized, we have a day off, a Good Friday, but it's really a Christian holiday, right? Buddhism, we don't celebrate Good Friday, other than every Friday. But we don't celebrate the Good Friday. So what do they celebrate, again, in Christianity? I had to think about it for a moment, because actually I was raised, my mother was originally a Protestant Christian and my father a Catholic Christian, but they sort of gave up Christianity when they were younger, and they never took me to church ever, except when we were going on some holiday and we just wanted to look at the building, but there was never like teachings about Christianity. But it was still interesting that when I was in primary school, my parents decided to send me to Bible classes, even though they didn't believe in anything the Bible had to say. There was this 1 hour a week that you had in primary school. 1 hour was like an elective, but you didn't get to choose. Your parents chose for you what you had to do. So there was something about humanities, and other option was Bible classes. Another option was to just do more maths. Done enough maths already, so I was happy that my parents sent me to Bible classes, because especially in the early days it was just drawing pictures of Noah's Ark and so forth. And listening to stories about people walking through the desert. I didn't understand half of it, but I did, or all of it probably actually, but I did later when I was going into high school, became a bit more interested in religion and life, And what is life about? And what do all these different religions teach? I already started in high school to think about life a bit more deeply. And not just the superficial pleasures. Of course, I did chase superficial pleasures a lot as well in high school. Don't get me wrong, I was not like a noble saint in any way. I will not tell you those stories. Those are secret. Yeah, I just open my mouth and let anything come out, but those things I'll keep in. One day maybe. But anyway, not today. But so I was thinking about life in a more deeper sense already. And starting to talk to older people. I remember this old friend of mine who was a Christian, and I talk about Christianity because I worked with him. I used to pick flowers in my holidays for a living. It's a kind of cool job. And this other guy who picked flowers as well. We used to talk about all sort of things. And one of these things was religion. And he talked about having faith in Jesus. And maybe some of you are Christians and here listening to this talk, maybe online, and you have faith in Jesus and it helps you in life. And that's beautiful. But for me, that approach to life, just having faith in things, never worked. I could not just have faith in things. Yeah? I'm talking about this now because Good Friday, of course, is when Jesus was put on the cross. And that's a very important thing in the religion of Christianity. To have faith that Jesus was put on the cross and died for your sins. And because he died for your sins, you can go to heaven. To me, again, you can decide for yourself, but to me, that never made sense. Yeah. Somebody else died for my happiness. He sort of did the work for me in a sense. I will not go into the details of Christianity here, but I mention it because I want to oppose it to Buddhism. In Buddhism, it's not about just believing what you're told. Yeah? You have to believe that, right? When I tell you. Okay. Yeah? No, you don't have to believe that even. You can look that up, actually. We have the words of the Buddha, we believe. No, I'm going too far with this joke, but there is the Buddha supposed to have said in one of his discourses, when people asked very similar questions to what I was asking when I was in my mid to late teens. What is life about? And one kind of group of people, one religion teaches this, they told the Buddha, and another group of people teaches that, and now you, Buddha, you teach this. Who should we believe? These were the Kalamas, so the sutta is known as the Kalama Sutta. The Kalama is just a name for those people. And what did the Buddha say? Yes, you should believe me. No, he did not say that. Of course not. He said, don't go by what tradition says. Don't go by mere faith. Don't go by mere reasoning. Don't go by the idea, this teacher is our guru, so we should believe him. No, don't go by the scriptures. But instead, if you find that in life, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, the things you do are wholesome and bring you happiness and peace, bring you wisdom, then those are the things you should follow. And those are the things you can accept as truth in life. And when I found out that that was what Buddhism teaches, I found that so different from other things that I've heard before in other religions, and it really inspired me. And it also has this idea that each and every one has our own responsibility for finding happiness and peace in life. It's a path of personal development, and nobody else can do the work for you. In a way, that's a bit Depressing. Nobody can do the work for me. I wish Ajahn Brahm could just do my meditation for me. Or I wish the Buddha could just do the meditation for me. Why didn't he just meditate for all living beings and make them all free from suffering? Why? Why didn't the Buddha just do that? Because he couldn't. He even told his disciples that. He said, I can't control other people. You have to all walk the path for yourself. Yeah, so in a way that's like depressing. I have to do all the work. But it also, again, is different from what I was taught elsewhere. Like, you just have faith in certain things. I used Christianity as an example before, but many other religions are similar. You just have faith in a certain thing, and then that thing will somehow take care of you. No, in Buddhism, it's not about that. It's about developing our own minds. And that I found so different and so helpful. Because I realized you can be responsible for your own happiness? Wow. I thought happiness was just something that comes and goes, something you have no control over. Well, maybe you try and chase happiness in the world, in worldly things, but those are never really very lasting or very dependent, I also found that out already as a student. I sort of hinted before that I was not always a noble saint, definitely, as a student. And I went to many, many crazy parties as a student, right? And whole night partying, so happy. Music, friends, stupid things like beer and so forth. And was really happy. But almost always after the party was over and I'm going home, felt so sad in a way. I remember many of those moments more strongly than the parties itself, actually. It's like okay, you had a party, but now what, And it felt even depressing in it, not like chronically depressed in a way, but just depressing. I remember just walking down sometimes from those parties in the center of the city back to where I lived. Must have been, pretty impressive on me, actually, because I probably was kind of drunk, and I still remember those moments, some of them very vividly, like just looking over the river and just staring in the distance. So parties are great and all, but does it really give me that happiness, the peace, or that I sort of already knew about because I was already meditating at that time as well? And I realized there's these different kinds of happiness. And the happiness of parties is not really reliable in a way. You always need a better party. One party is great, then the next party has to be better to be able for you to find some happiness there. But on the other hand, you had the meditation. And that was like a kind of happiness that does not rely upon external factors. If you can find it. Spoiler alert, not every meditation will work beautifully. You probably know that. Sometimes you might be struggling a little bit, especially when you start out meditation, but even when you progress in meditation. It's learning. That's basically what the Buddha taught us. There's this path. And it's your own responsibility to learn about yourself and about life, and learning about how to find happiness and peace within, with whatever happens externally. But this is not just something you can do like that. It's a process, and you become better and better at it, hopefully. I've noticed that I've become better and better at it. And most people who've meditated for a long time realize that as well. Become better and better at finding this silence within. And that, I realized that very early already in my spiritual life, let's say. Because I found out that you can find this peace within, and that you do have a certain control in a way over what goes on in your mind. So you can sort of create happiness out of nowhere in meditation. Does that sound great? Yeah, there's happiness for free. Imagine you go to the McDonald's or whatever and you have this unlimited drink, from the machine. It's been a long time since I've had that, but you go unlimited Coca-Cola. But now, instead of unlimited Coca-Cola or unlimited Sprite, you get unlimited happiness. Wow, would you take that deal? That is what we do at Fridays at Nanamara, not at McDonald's, in Dhammaloka Center. We learn to find some of that happiness within. And I hope you at least have had a taste of that at some points in your meditation. By the way, is there anybody who is the first time here? Yeah, some people first time, and some people never meditated before as well, or you did? Who has never found any peace whatsoever in meditation? Please don't feel shy. Oh, wow. Everybody found some peace? So maybe you know what I'm talking about then. But even in the Buddhist text, there are some monks and nuns who say, most of the Buddhist texts, by the way, are all the Buddha saying how nice and peaceful everything can be. But there are some texts where some of the monks and nuns say, for 20 years I've been a monk, and not a single moment of peace I've had. It's in that Therigatha and Theragatha, those texts. Some of the monks and nuns say that, and then I think, wow, luckily I'm not that. How can you be a monk or nun for 20 years and not a single moment of peace? But I think they mean something much deeper still than the peace that you've experienced. They have higher standards. But that's for another day, those really deep peace. Today I want to just talk about that McDonald peace. I don't know if that's an appropriate name, but you're all laughing, so you probably know what I mean. Yeah, so you have the McDonald piece, the fast food piece, and you have the, what's like a luxury restaurant here in Perth, like a 5-star Michelin one. You've got the 5-star Michelin piece, whatever. Yeah, that's what they're talking about, the 5-star, which you can hopefully also find, but I will not talk about this today. Today is about the peace and meditation. Now my mind is moving to that deeper peace anyway, so doesn't matter. So, peace and meditation is not just for the sake of enjoying the peace, which is so nice, you can find so much benefit in that. It's also for learning. Yeah? So we can use the meditation just to enjoy it. We can use that peace to be more effective in our lives, which is why many people meditate. They meditate to be better at their work, or be more at peace in life, which is good. But the third reason to meditate is a higher reason. It's not just for enjoyment, not just for being more functional. It's for learning about life, by which I mean learning about yourself. And not about life in like a biology kind of way, but learning about what is it to be you. Don't even know how to exactly phrase it, but what does it mean to have experiences? Where do certain experiences come from? And how do we relate to that? All these things that you can learn about in meditation, that teach you about the workings of the mind. And this is another thing which I found so unique about Buddhism. Yeah, I already mentioned it before, about learning about things, not just taking things on faith. It's not like there's some priest here who says, this is what you should believe if you are skilled in goodness. No, this is what should be done by one is skilled in goodness, is what we chant. put it into practice. You learn. And you don't take things for granted. Yeah? Does that inspire you as well? In a way? Isn't not nice to know that you have all the answers, can find all the answers within, and you don't have to go to a book or a priest or some other external thing to find truth? To me, that's very beautiful, and it has always been, because it means that the answers are within you, not out there. And not in the, there's no answers in the suttas. There's no answers in my Dharma talks. Yeah? I taught a retreat like a month or so ago in Jhana Grove. And at some point I said, all I'm saying is just stuff and nonsense, just blah, 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 blah. All my words are just blah, blah, blah. Nothing wise, really, truly wise. Nothing really true in my words. Because only the real truth you find within yourself. And where within do you find truth? What is life really about? It's about, where do you find out what life is really about? It's within that silence of the mind. And you probably need more than that 16 minutes of silence that I mentioned before to find out what the mind is really about. But actually, it can be very quickly, once you do find real deep peace, the Michelin kind of peace, then you learn so quickly. But maybe I'll actually get back to that at the end of the talk. First, some of you might not be convinced that silence can provide answers. Because you go through life, if you need an answer, where do you find the answer? On Google. Or on, I don't know, ChatGPT these days, apparently is the new rave. No, that's not where you find the answers. But if you need an answer, then from when we're young, we're taught that you think about it. Yeah, you've got a question, you think about it very hard. That's how you find the answers. And this is what philosophy is largely about. There's also philosophers who realized that you cannot find answers through thinking. But many of the philosophers in the history of the world were called rationalists. And rationalists means they believe that if you want to find the answers about life, you have to think about it really hard and really apply your intellect, your rationale, and then you'll find the answers by really thinking. And there was one famous philosopher who came so close, I believe, or this is how I will make the story sound like anyway, so close to finding the answers about life. And this philosopher was called René Descartes. Has any of you heard of him? Yeah? His name sounds French, so he was probably French. And he lived somewhere at the end of the Middle Ages, maybe the start of the Renaissance or something. René Descartes, he had this brilliant idea, and then he messed it up. Because what was René Descartes' idea? He was also thinking, what is life about? What is truth? What is real? And then he decided to imagine that all that he experienced, all that he knows is false. He cannot trust anything that he experiences. When he wrote it down, he was like, imagine there is a big demon who tries to delude everything that you experience. And nothing you experience is truth. Is there a world out there? I don't know. But that it was a good idea of Descartes. Yeah? Question all your experiences. Question everything That's basically what he did. And then he wrote this simile of the demon. Imagine that everything you experience, you might be wrong about. That's very good. That's very similar to what the Buddha was saying when he talked about delusion. You think you know what truth is, but you might be deluded about it. Then, René Descartes, however, he took the rational way, the thinking way, instead of just letting go of everything and finding peace within and letting the answers come from peace, like the Buddha did. René Descartes decided, so I cannot trust anything. However, what can I trust is the fact that I'm thinking that I can't trust anything. At least I can trust that I think. And then he concluded, I think, therefore I am. Famous statement. Yeah? I think, therefore I am. The Buddha did not say, I think, therefore I am. The Buddha did not say this, but you can imagine the Buddha saying, I don't think, so I am not. Let go of all the thinking, then you start disappearing. So this is where René Descartes made his first mistake. And then he made many more mistakes based on that as well, in my view. Because he started with the I. He started with the I, and from the I he built up his whole world through thinking. But in Buddhism, we find peace within. And the more peace and peace you find within, the less I you find within. Because it's always that I that disturbs things, the I that needs things to be different. Have you ever tried to control somebody else's meditation, somebody else's mind while they're meditating? Do you care what other people are experiencing meditation as much as you care about your own meditation? No, probably. And always try to control your own, quote-unquote, mind. Because you see that I, just like Descartes did in a sense, in experience. That's why you can't just be peaceful with it. You want to change it because there's this I at the other side. But the more peace you find, the more of that I disappears as well. And then there's just peace. Michelin. Top of the crème de la crème peace. And that's where you find the answers. And that peace is so quiet that the mind cannot even move, or barely move. And you might intellectually think like, if the mind doesn't move, how do I learn anything from that? But it's when you come out of that peace, then you realize that delusion that the Buddha talked about, because you've let go of it for a while. Now, this is a story Ajahn Brahm likes to tell when he teaches this, is imagine you are a tadpole. You know, a tadpole is like the spawn of a frog, for those of you who don't know English. There's many people listening from all sorts of countries over the world, so sometimes I explain these little words. It's like the baby frog, yeah, who swims in the water. You're swimming in the water and you spend the whole life in water. Yeah? You go to sleep in the water, you wake up in the water, you speak to your friends in the water, you go to work in the water, you play in the water, you eat and drink in the water, and you're always in the water the whole day long, for many, many years. But one day, the tadpole suddenly starts changing, and it grows legs, and it turns into a frog, and that frog goes out of the water. And then suddenly, the frog looks back on the water and realizes, oh, that's what I've been spending my whole life in. While I was under the water, I never really knew what water was because I didn't realize that I was in it. But now I stepped out of the water. Now I realize what water really is. And that's what we can do in meditation. You step out of your life. Yeah? By coming here, you've already stepped out of many things, your work, your past, your future. But in meditation we go even deeper. We let go of more and more and more. Let go of the thoughts, and we find that silence. But this is still just the McDonald's silence. You go deeper, deeper and deeper, find more and more peace. Until more and more starts to fade away, and you step out of ordinary experience. Like the tadpole steps out of the water. You grow your little legs in a way, and then you can learn about life. You can learn what life is really about. And the things you learn are not what you might expect, but they're very beautiful. And you're like, wow, this is crazy. I never expected that this was what life is about. Or about, I shouldn't say about, because it sounds like the meaning of life, but that this is what life is. That's the better way to put it. And that is really what Buddhism, to me at least, is really deeply about. It's not about faith, it's not even just about meditation, but really learning about life and learning about ourselves. And when you learn about yourselves, you grow as a person. Yeah. So you learn step by step more about your own mind. And if you know more about your own mind, you can be more, in a sense, in control of your mind. You can find more of that happiness because you see the tendencies of the mind that bring you suffering. And those tendencies you learn about, and you say to yourself, no more of that. I know that's gonna cause me suffering. The anger, the annoyance, the disappointment, the depression, it's all in a way your mind moving in the wrong direction. But when you learn about those tendencies, you can become slowly happier and happier in life. Does that sound like a good idea to you? Yeah? And I think many of you already realize that to quite a large extent. Otherwise you wouldn't come back to these talks all of the time. Finding happiness. But we find happiness by letting go of suffering. Happiness is nothing but the absence of suffering. That's what you learn when you go really, really deep in meditation. And I would like to end with a little story. What it means to really understand life through letting go of all that stuff that is not peace. And this is the story. And I made up this story myself, so don't go look it up online for a better version. You won't find any better version than this, which will be the crappy version anyway. This is the story of the postman and the dog. There was once a postman who always happily delivering the mail in the town of Nanamara. And he went from house to house delivering mail and packages, opening the gates of the houses, walking up to the houses, putting... Actually, most of the mailboxes here are outside of the gate in Australia, right? But in the Netherlands, they're always inside of the gate. So the mailman was not from Nanamara, he was from the Netherlands, okay? So, that doesn't even matter to the story. I told you it was gonna be the crappy version. Oh, well. So this postman, or postwomen actually, could also be. Or post non-binary person. This post person. Yeah, could also be. So let me restart. Okay, the postman always happy delivering packages. And it took me 5 minutes just to tell you that. 5 minutes happy. No, wait. I told you it was going to be the crappy version. So the postman happy delivering packages from house to house. One day he opened the gate. And what happened? Woof, 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 woof. Woof, 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 woof. Actually, English dogs do woof, woof, woof. It's only the Dutch dogs who do woof, woof, woof. I realize now. Because animals make different sounds in different countries. So this was definitely a Dutch postman. It's proven now because the dog was Dutch. Dutch dog, yeah. And even has its clogs on. No, he didn't. So, the postman and the dog. So, woof, 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 woof. The dog went. Wah, and he went up to the postman with big teeth. Rah, running up to the postman. And the postman started running through the whole of the Netherlands, from Amsterdam to all through the town, to get rid of the dog. But he couldn't outpace the dog. The dog was always just behind him, always there, always ready to bite him. Yeah, the distance didn't get any shorter, also didn't get any longer, but the postman kept running through this street, to that street, and at some point he started throwing his packages at the dog. Yeah? Go away, you stupid dog. And still didn't help. The dog running behind him. Yeah, one of these Rottweilers with the prickly collar, the scary ones. And of course the postman didn't want to get bitten, so he kept running and running all over the place. Suddenly he took a turn into an alley, and what turned out to be a dead-way alley. In front of the postman, there was now a big wall. He looked to the side. There was a big wall as well. And to the left, an even bigger wall. No doors as well. Nowhere the postman could turn, other than to turn around, face the dog. Then the postman thought, I'm gonna be bitten. So he let go. No more running away. When he let go, the dog jumped up and licked him in the face. And then the dog ran off. And the postman was like, no, don't leave me, dog, kind dog. And then the postman was running after the dog. And in this story, you are the postman. And the dog is suffering. And all your life, you're running away from suffering. No, don't bite me, suffering. I don't want the suffering. I want only good things to happen. I want only happiness, no suffering. And you run through life, going here and there. But at some point, through meditation, you realize there's nowhere to go. You turn into a dead alleyway, in a sense. And all you can do is face the suffering head on. And then you let go. And then the suffering licks you in the face and starts moving away from you. And then you're like, no, suffering, don't go. And that moment is when everything changes and when you see truth as it really is. But that will be the subject, maybe, of another talk. Thank you for listening. All right. Now, if there's no questions, then we can listen to that 16-minute thing. But maybe there's always questions. Is there any questions from here? Anybody here? Thank you. But I'll do those after maybe anybody here has a question. Venerable Mataji asked the question, why did you want to become a monk? That's the question we've heard so many times before. Yeah. Chasing after the dog, maybe. That is the most asked question in the whole of Buddhism. Why did you want to become a monk? Why don't you want to become a monk or a nun? Anyway, no questions here. Thank you very much for the non-questions. I like the non-questions. But also, people online, thank you very much for your questions. I like those as well. Well, we'll see. Maybe I don't like them, but we'll see. Question from Richard. Venerable, you talked about that everyone is responsible for their own happiness. Would that be the meaning of diligence in the context of Hiri Ottappa in the Tayodhamma Sutta? Tayodhamma Sutta is probably multiple suttas named that way, because it just means, I think, just 3 dhammas or something, or maybe, no, that would be something different. I can't remember that sutta, so I don't like this question. No, very good question. So, diligence, there is a certain diligence that the Buddha talked about in the suttas, that's right. It's a diligence to practice the path of Buddhism, the Eightfold Path. It takes a certain investment of energy to change the way you live life. The Eightfold Path is not just about meditation, but about how you live your entire life. How you talk to people, how you behave, what you do in your free time, and kind of people you relate, you live with, all these things. It takes some diligence to change your life. But it also takes some diligence to sit down to meditate, because it's not always peace and bliss, right? Yeah. To find the peace and bliss, you also have to go through the suffering. So it takes some diligence. And the responsibility for your own happiness, it's in a way just me talking about things. But if you could also say, if there is no I behind it, who is responsible? Yeah. So in a way, it's just conventional language. But I say that, responsible for your own happiness, because it's very important to realize that in Buddhism we don't find happiness in external things. Yeah, we can't find even the loveliest monastery in the world for me as a monk. I could find the best monastery in the whole world, where the climate is absolutely perfect, not as hot as it here is in Perth most of the year. It's finally starting to get to a normal climate this time of year. I see some people have all their shawls on and thick jackets, but for me it's finally getting normal climate. So maybe I could find a monastery somewhere better than Bodhinyana. Yeah, where the climate is better, where the food is better, where the monks are better. Pretty good monks in Bodhinyana. But if you think like that, you can look your whole life. Yeah, of course I use a monastery as an example, but for you it will be similar, right? Maybe you're trying to find the best house to live in, the best partner to live in, the best salary, the best job, all these externals. You can never find true happiness there, because things will keep changing and they're never perfect anyway. No monastery is perfect. Or is Bodhinyana perfect? Good enough. Yeah, that's the attitude. Good enough. Yeah, it's good enough. Then you can be happy there. Your partner in life, if you have a partner, they're not perfect. I see some people looking at each other. It doesn't apply to you. You're perfect. No, nobody's perfect. But they're good enough. And once you see people are good enough, then they become perfect in your eyes. Same with monastery. Bodhinyana monastery is perfect when I am happy and when things are good enough. when I'm suffering and I think, oh, Bodhinyana monastery is stupid, all the monks are too noisy, and the Dhamma talks go on for too long, like my talk right now. And some people already walked out. And food is not right. Then I suffer. So you have some responsibility for your own happiness. That's what I mean there. Yeah. So it's not just happiness comes out of nowhere. You can sort of decide how you look at life. And there's this famous saying by Shakespeare. And I can't remember the exact words, but it comes down to nothing is either good or bad in the world, but thinking makes it so. I would say nothing is either good or bad in the world, but the way you look at it makes it so. If you think things are bad, then they become bad. If you think things are okay and good enough, then they become good enough. That's how you apply some diligence and responsibility for your own happiness, Richard. Then there's a question from Singapore, from Xiu Yin. Hi, Venerable Sunyo. Which term is most in line with the Buddha's teachings? Rebirth, reincarnations, recycle, re-existence, re-becoming? Definitely recycle. Yeah. You know, when you recycle things, you throw them in the bin and you'll never see them back again. Yeah, we recycle plastic bottles, we throw them in the bin, and you never see those bottles back again. Oh, they'll be used for something else, but you personally never use the bottle again. So in Buddhism, when you meditate, you throw it all in the bin. All your thoughts, just all the past, all the future, you throw it away, and you'll never see it again. That is what Buddhism is about. So recycling. Yeah, no. Sometimes people argue what is the best word, rebirth, reincarnation, or so forth. But that is just words, you know. And they're all pointing to the same thing. It doesn't really matter what you use, to me. So, another question. Venerable Sunyo. They all call me Venerable Sunyo, you know. Venerable. This is very complicated for me. So, the reason why is I don't want to call myself Venerable Sunyo. Because it's like, I'm venerable, you know. Honor me, I'm Honorable Sunyo. So, I'm very happy that in a few months from now, we just talked about this earlier, I will have 10 years as a monk. And when you have 10 years as a monk, I don't know if any of you know this, then in Thailand, this tradition, they start calling you Ajahn, like Ajahn Brahm, yeah? And Ajahn Brahmali, and many of Ajahns. Then I'll be Ajahn Sunyo. I will be so happy, not because I have 10 years or because people are going to call me Ajahn, because finally I can say I'm Ajahn Sunyo. Because Ajahn just means teacher. And I don't mind calling myself a teacher. I might be a bad teacher, I don't know about that. But a teacher Sunyo I can say, but Venerable Sunyo, that sounds a bit high blown for me. So I'm looking forward to that. And it also means that I'm not a teacher yet, right? So I can mess up for a few more months as much as I want. Like I'm doing by not answering your question. Okay, how do I find, and then there's some symbols here. I suppose your keyboard might not working, so maybe how do I find a new keyboard? Go to the electronics store, not to a Dhamma talk. No. How do I find stillness within me when I look at the world and feel their pain, kindness and compassion turn into tears instead? How to be more content so I find peace? Yes, this is a thing with compassion and realizing there's suffering in the world. It can make you lose stillness if you are not above that suffering yourself. This is the danger of compassion, It's always good to have compassion, there's no danger in compassion, but the problem with compassion can be if you see certain kinds of suffering and you realize that you're not beyond that suffering, then you can be very shook. And then it's hard to be content because you realize I have not gone beyond that myself. So try and see if you can step out of your own suffering a bit more before contemplating the suffering of other beings. Then you'll be less moved by the suffering of other beings as well, because you see there is a way out. And then you can also start in your own ways guiding those other people out of suffering. If suffering is just an endless process with no ending at all, then you'll be moved and turn into tears. But if you know that suffering can have an end, then you're okay. If you see the dog is always chasing you and chasing others, then you cannot find peace. But if you can face the dog stands for suffering, remember? And let the dog lick you in the face, by letting go, then you can find some peace. And I also can find peace by turning off this microphone. And no more blah-de-blah from me. Thank you all for your attention, and let us finish this good, wonderful, beautiful Friday by paying respects to the teacher who started all of this, the Buddha, his teachings, the Dhamma, and also his following of noble people, the Sangha. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivade Swagato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham